Hello and welcome to episode 13. Today we'll be talking about the Mercedes W05 and Ferrari F14T, two Formula 1 cars. So we'll be taking out the Mercedes W05 first and see how that performs. So let's just see how it goes. Right, so I'll take you through the specs of the car first. The V8 has now been replaced by the 1.6 litre V6 turbocharged engine. Now the engine itself has been producing, I think, 600 brake horsepower with 160 brake horsepower from the battery unit itself. So as you can see, both the units obviously work properly. Although obviously we are going to compare this to the Ferrari F14T and see how that performs with the same engine. But yeah, we'll just see how this goes around the corners and things like that. Personally, I've driven this car and I found it to be, comparing it to the Ferrari, I found the handling very good. Overall, the power's just there as well, so you can feel it much better. I think it is one of the best cars from the lot, to be honest. The car itself has an 8-speed gearbox and a reverse unit with carbon fibre main case. And obviously the common drivers in the Grand Prix were Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. Right, so I'll pass it over to you.
Alright, so let's take this out on a nice warm-up lap. Just coming through Cops right now, going to head into Maggots and Beckett's. And one thing that I will say about this car already is that it doesn't sound as nice as, say, the other Formula 1 cars, the V8s, the V6s, but we've had loads and loads of complaints ever since these cars came out in March. What we've got here though is a mod that quite realistically represents that, and the sounds are pretty spot on. We were comparing this earlier to we were comparing it to the YouTube videos of some of the onboard camera shots for this car with Nico Rosberg driving, and this is pretty close to it. I mean, obviously there's a bit of that raspiness that's missing, but it's still fairly decent, and it does accurately represent the noise that these V6 engines make, which actually isn't a lot. Just make it through here, going into the infield, coming up through Farm Curve and into the loop, and that's going to slide a bit going into the loop. Now, one thing I have to say already is that if I shift this up to 8th gear, this is something I'm not kind of fond of because these gear ratios are now locked in, unlike the previous Formula cars. If I shift it up to 8th gear, you'll notice it seems to freeze the display in the middle of the screen. That's a bit of a glitch that they probably need to work on. I'm not sure why that's happening. I mean, it does show 8th gear up in the F1 style HUD that we're displaying today as well. Again, links to that will also be down in the description box, as well as these two cars. And yeah, apart from that, the car itself is very nice to drive. It's very responsive. You can really hug a corner pretty tightly, so it's very like the actual car that they've actually got in, obviously, in the real racing. So the ones that's being driven by Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. This car is very faithful to it. You can tell that the car, it gives you confidence. It gives you a lot more confidence than the Ferrari, which we'll come to in a bit. But it does still make you drive for it. So you can see here, I can really hug the inside here. But if I do go wide, this car allows me to correct pretty easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can get a bit of a hot lap out of this and see if I can talk. So coming out of Club Corner, I don't have DRS and curves, even though I have tried to use them, so I am going to be quite down on power.
I think that's a work in progress, isn't it? The
yeah,
DRS
I think so.
curves,
Slight lift off, bring it into gear, early on the brakes, bring it down, into third, through the corner, hug the outside, brake again, down to second, slight lock up of my rear left wheel, coming out, power down, almost flat through here, onto the Wellington straight. At this point I would have deployed DRS, but I can't. Braking, coming into Luffield, and then out of Woodcut, back on the power, Nice and early, ride it right out to the edge of the curb. Again, slight tap on the brakes, turn it in, miss the apex there. Now here, Maggots and Beckett's best section of the track. Got to take flat into Maggots, lift off, brake slightly, down to 5th gear, one more, down to 4th, slightly wide, lost about 5 miles an hour more than I should have there. Out of Chapel, down the Hanger Straight. See here, you know, you're getting 7th, I can't even get into 8th gear. Braking for Stowe, my brake's a bit too much there. Power down, and carry up to Vale and Club. Oh,
Ooh.
bit of a lock up there. Lost significant amounts of time there.
I've actually noticed that when you're racing the Ferrari before, it is actually a big difference on the gear ratios, isn't it?
It is, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Right, you see here now I'm on an even faster lap here. But this car, a bit wide, this car is a lot easier to drive. As you can see, look, I can hug the apex quite nicely now. Watch when I go through the next lot of them. At the end of this straight, when I come into the Luffield Brooklands Woodcut section, watch how closely I can hug some of the curbs, and it just wants to hug it. You can really hug the curb really tightly. So back in, and I can hold it there. And that's the difference on this car, and I think that's what's making this car so popular, and that's why this car is winning all bar one of the races. So we'll just finish off this lap, and we'll switch to the Ferrari F14T and see what kind of difference that makes.
We're back, and this time we'll be talking about the Ferrari F14T and how it compares to the Mercedes W05. Right, let's take it onto the track. Now I'll take you to the specification of this car as well. Okay, so the displacement is a 1.6 litre engine as well, same as the Mercedes. The max revs of this car is 15,000 revs, although I'm not quite sure if it goes to that 15,000 revs, does it? And it's also a single turbo charged car, V6 engine, 6-cylinder. Also has the electronic system, so it's producing 160 bhp, so in total 760 brake horsepower. Right. This also has the 8-speed gearbox, although it's a much lower ratio gearbox compared to the Mercedes one, as we saw in the previous car. It's also semi-automatic sequential gearbox. Right. Okay. Now let's just talk about how the V6 compares to the V8. Well, the power output is probably similar to the V8, although there's not much of a roar, so you can actually hear that in this car. The sound isn't that loud as the roaring V8. I'd say the V6 does have more torque because of the turbo now included, as the V8 was naturally aspirated before. The turbo is limited to 155,000 RPM. Will the racing be better? Well, there'll be a lot of overstays, as you can see. The turbo kicks in a lot. Looks like we just went off track there as well.
Yeah.
Will the V6 sound good? Well, can you answer that? I can definitely say a big no to that, because I really do miss the roaring V8 engines. This is naturally aspirated as well, so the high rev limits. Whereas now it's just really low on the revs. All you can hear is the turbo. There's not much note engine sound notes, to be honest.
I'm wondering whether if they did allow this to rev up to 18,000,
yeah,
it would sound really good. But that being said, you had the old V6s. I mean, what was it? A few weeks ago, we did that Formula Challenge, and we had the Lotus 98T. That was a V6, and that had turbo on it, and that produced 1,200 brake horsepower.
But didn't that sound good?
But it sounded great.
Exactly.
And it was revving similar kind of rev. So you know, I don't know what they've done here, but in terms of this mod, the creators of this mod have authentically reproduced the noise. This doesn't sound the same as the Mercedes W05. It sounds different. There's less of a turbo hiss on this. I kind of prefer that, but it's not as loud. Again, they've got the same glitch with 8th gear. You saw there. Now the thing is with this car, like we just said about the ratios being lower, I can hit 8th gear so much faster now. Say 5th, 6th, 7th, and I'm going to be in 8th before I even get there. Down the national pitch straight, I'm in 8th gear. Now the other car was just in 7th. So it is slightly different on the ratios. What that does mean is that some of the corners I can get better traction out of some corners, but this car itself is a right handful to drive. It honestly is a handful to drive compared to the Mercedes. I can understand why this year Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen are having such a tough time, and it does sort of show how good drivers these guys are to drive cars that are such. Well, I love Ferraris, but this car is an absolute dog.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's terrible.
But I've got to give it to Alonso though. I mean, he's one skilled driver.
He's definitely one skilled driver. I mean, I personally think he's the best driver on the grid, on the current grid right now. To drive a car like this, I mean, Rosberg and Hamilton, in a sense, they have it easy. They've got the power. They've got the power. They've got the car that wants to stick in a corner. They've got this car understeers through half the corners, oversteers on the exit of every corner. Honestly, I wouldn't want to drive this Ferrari. It's a really tough car to drive. There's some significant developments that need to be done to this car for it to be able to catch up to the Mercedes in any which way. In terms of raw speed, it's down. Its gear ratios, gear ratios are sort of they're not really that important because they've set it for certain tracks.
Yeah.
So they can't really do much about that. But in terms of raw speed, it's down on horsepower. The Ferrari engine it's supposed to be 600 bhp with 160.
But it doesn't feel like it, does it?
I don't think it is. I think it's about 40 or 50 bhp down. In terms of handling, the aerodynamics are off. They're definitely off. I mean, the nose has a similar philosophy to the Mercedes nose, but unlike the Mercedes nose, it looks like during development there was a point where Hagrid sat on it, and then they've gone like, yes, this is the nose we'll use. We'll use one of these noses. I mean, they might as well just call it the Ferrari F14T Hagrid edition. Because that nose is horrible, and it doesn't really do much for the car itself. I mean, right, time to take this out on a hot lap. Well, not a hot lap because I'm still not used to this car, but 6th gear through there, through the Abbey, through farm, coming up, brake, down to 3rd again, miss the apex again, down to 2nd, see if we can get the apex here. Yep, nicely done. Out we come, back into the Wellington straight. Definitely less throttle than before. Brake a little bit earlier. This car does not like sticking on the corner. Let's see if I can get this car to stick onto this. Nope, just understeering. Right, coming through, heading up the old pit straights. I like this pit straight. And then into cops, brake, you've got to go down 2 gears here at points. I think I could take that just by lifting off if I had the confidence, which I don't. Into maggots, flat, have to lift up a lot earlier. But this is where the Ferrari has a slight advantage, is that it can carry oh, there you go.
You know, I really saw that coming towards the end. I saw it.
Right.
Oh boy. Please tell me I haven't.
No, I haven't. I haven't beached it. I just need to. Okay, now I've beached it.
Well.
Yeah, okay. Oh, it's reset me to pace. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Brilliant. Right, I think the best way to do this now is what we'll do is I will do a few laps and then we'll record some and we'll post 2 hot laps side by side. We'll post 2 hot laps side by side so you can see exactly where the Mercedes is better than the Ferrari or where the whoa, there it goes again. Where the Mercedes is better than the Ferrari, and you'll be able to see where the speed difference is. We'll do some audio comparisons and pretty much like what you get in actual Formula 1. So, stand by for that. If I can sort of get to grips with this car. Yep, we'll be right back with some side-by-side comparisons. Well, that's that. It shows that the Mercedes has superiority both in real life and in Assetto Corsa now. Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave a comment in our comments box if you'd like to see more and what you'd like to see. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week.